Panasonic VHS takes up to 4 hours.
Polaroid's got a new SX70 film that develops twice as fast.
The same boiling water that makes instant coffee makes Quaker instant oatmeal.
Imagine stepping into a time machine and landing in the groovy, colorful world of the 1970s. Bell-bottoms are swishing, disco balls are spinning, and the air smells of hairspray and ambition. It was a decade of bold newness, from rock and roll to pop culture's explosion. Fast forward to today, and those items have all but vanished from our lives. The world has changed, technology has evolved, and Gen Z, growing up with smartphones and instant streaming, has never even laid eyes on some of these forgotten treasures. In this video, we're diving deep into 25 everyday items from the 1970s Gen Z has never seen. Remember the good old days when you couldn't just carry your phone around?
Even if you're too young to have grown up using one of these telephones, you've surely seen it in countless movies and TV shows.
You were stuck near the wall or kitchen counter, dialing each number one by one. No speed dial, just good old-fashioned twisting. And that long cord? A real challenge. You'd try to stretch it for privacy, but it always tangled into a mess, leaving you wishing for cordless phones. The worst part? When someone picked up the phone in another room and you were left having an awkward conversation while doing the cord tango, dodging obstacles. It was an experience, wasn't it? It was definitely a far cry from today's wireless convenience. But while the phone cords tied us down, other everyday items were doing their part to keep us organized in a world before digital convenience took over.
Cork bulletin boards by Quartet. These bulletin boards provide a dependable posting surface for photos, documents, and more.
In the 1970s, cork bulletin boards were a must-have in homes, schools, and offices. These simple, practical boards provided a space to pin up photos, important notes, or reminders, helping everyone stay organized. Whether on the kitchen wall or in a classroom, they were the go-to solution for managing information in a world before smartphones and digital calendars. Families would use colorful push pins to attach memos or display artwork, creating a personal and functional space. Today, cork boards have largely been replaced by apps, digital reminders, and online calendars, making them a forgotten relic of a pre-digital age.
And the heyday of the ever-popular Polaroid camera. Though Polaroid came along well before the 70s.
Instant photos were the thing back in the day. You'd snap a photo, wait a few minutes for it to develop, and then hold a picture right there in your hands. No need to wait for it to load or edit to make it perfect. What you got was real, just a memory frozen in time. It felt like magic, watching the image slowly appear. Each photo felt special, unlike today, when you can snap 100 shots in seconds. Back then, it was all about capturing that one perfect moment. Holding the photo as it developed was an exciting, nostalgic vibe that was simple and cool. It sounds totally bizarre, but pet rocks were a thing.
It's been incredible. We mailed our first pet rocks to the stores October 1st, and by Christmas we'll have sold well over 1 million units. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen.
People bought ordinary rocks, put them in little boxes with air holes, and treated them like pets. No walks, no feeding, just pure relaxation. The ultimate low-maintenance companion. You didn't have to worry about vet visits or cleaning up after it. People named their rocks and sometimes decorated the boxes. No barking, no scratching, and they never got mad if you left them alone. If you wanted the experience of being a pet owner without the responsibility, the pet rock was the perfect solution. It's a quirky reminder of how unique fads can capture the imagination. But just when you thought things couldn't get any stranger, there was another trend that really hit the right note. Before streaming apps like Spotify took over, cassette tapes were the thing.
What a total sound sensation! Just slip into the featherweight headphones, pop in your favorite cassette, and you'll not only hear the music, you'll feel it all over.
If you wanted to impress someone or just vibe out, you'd spend hours making the perfect mixtape. Every song was chosen carefully, whether you were winning over a crush or setting the mood for a road trip. And the joy of hitting rewind on that little cassette player? Pure magic. You'd watch the tape spin back, eagerly waiting to hear your favorite song over and over. Of course, there were the dreaded tape jams where the tape would get stuck, but hey, that was all part of the adventure. All right, Let's talk about 8-track tapes.
This is my 8-track tape player. It's from Radio Shack from the 70s.
Those big, clunky things that were like the grandparents of cassette tapes. These bad boys were pretty massive, with thick plastic and those shiny metal strips inside. The sound? Not exactly crystal clear, but hey, they were the first real way to take your music on the go. Imagine trying to jam out in the car with one of these, sliding it into the deck, and hoping you didn't get stuck halfway through your favorite song. It wasn't always perfect, but back then, it was the coolest way to listen to music on the move before we got the Walkman or the iPod. The best part? They had that nostalgic click when you changed tracks, like a mini celebration, every time your song switched. But if you thought the 8-track was a hassle, wait until you hear how things got even more manual. Alright, forget about that backspace button. If you made a mistake, you had to deal with it the old school way. Either you'd grab a bottle of whiteout and try to cover it up, or if it was really bad, you'd have to retype the whole page. Yeah, imagine typing out a whole essay or letter, and then boom, a mistake. It wasn't like today where you can just hit delete and keep going. Nope. Back then, you had to stop, grab that little correction fluid, and wait for it to dry. Or, if you were really unlucky, you'd have to retype everything from scratch. It was slow, a frustrating kind of a pain. But there was something about it that made you feel like you were doing something important. Remember the ViewMaster?
This GAF ViewMaster is a lot of fun. What do you think?
It's really interesting. The three-dimensional color pictures are extraordinary. I find these...
It was like a tiny portal to a whole new world. You'd pop one of those colorful reels into the viewer, click the button, and bam! You were instantly transported to exotic locations, action-packed cartoons, or even wild animals in their natural habitats, all in three-dimensional or 3D. It was like taking a mini vacation without ever leaving your couch. You'd sit there, eyes wide, flipping through slide after slide, completely immersed in whatever amazing world you were seeing. It wasn't just looking at pictures. It was an adventure that felt like it had depth and magic. Whether you were dreaming of going to the Grand Canyon or hanging out with animated characters, the ViewMaster made everything feel special, even though it was just a plastic toy. Ah, the good old days before streaming.
Panasonic VHS tapes up to 4 hours of sports, movie specials on one cassette.
When we had video home system tapes, or VHS. Renting a movie back then wasn't just about picking a film. It was an entire event. You'd head to the video store, combing through rows of tapes, carefully choosing what to watch, and then hauling your pick back home. But the fun didn't stop there. After you finished watching, you had to rewind the tape. No fast-forwarding to the beginning. And if you didn't rewind it, you'd get a nasty late fee, which everyone dreaded. Then came the real challenge, praying the VHS tape didn't get stuck or eaten by the player. You'd hear that horrifying sound of the tape being chewed up, and your heart would drop. And while VHS tapes brought their own thrills and frustrations, there was another piece of 70s tech that kept us glued to screens, though in a much simpler way. Picture this. You're sitting on the couch, holding a chunky handheld game, and it's just a few simple dots bouncing around the screen. Whether it's football or tennis, the graphics are super basic, more like little blocks than anything else. But you're totally hooked.
It works, really short power cord, but like, for 10 bucks, I didn't even know you could get something like this, so I'm not gonna complain the volume works too, so you can mute this crap.
There's something oddly satisfying about the sound of the beeping as you try to beat your high score, even though it's basically just a square chasing another square around a screen. These games were far from flashy or high-tech, but they were the first taste of what would eventually explode into the huge world of video gaming we have today. They weren't about the graphics or the fancy features. It was all about fun, competition, and a little bit of nostalgia. The disco ball, an iconic symbol of the 70s.
If we sell it on LetGo, just have to take a picture and post it.
If you were at a party back then, the vibe wasn't complete without one spinning above. Picture it, the lights dimmed, music blasting, and that ball sending shimmering bursts of light across the room, energizing the dance floor. It was straight out of Saturday Night Fever, with John Travolta's moves in mind. The disco ball didn't just hang there, it set the mood for a night of fun, laughter, and dance battles. Whether you were showing off your best moves or just vibing, the disco ball made every moment feel magical. It was the heartbeat of the 70s party scene. Fluffy, colorful shag carpets were everywhere in the 70s. With their thick, velvety texture, they made you want to kick off your shoes and sink your toes right in. But cleaning them? A nightmare. Despite hours of vacuuming, the fibers trapped everything. Crumbs, pet hair, you name it.
It's Paula from WTI, and I'm in my girls' room, and currently everything in here is white, and it needed color right away, so I got this green rug.
Still, these carpets gave every room that cozy, laid-back vibe, almost like it was ready for a disco party. Even if you weren't rocking bell-bottoms or funky hair, your shag carpet had that retro charm, making every room feel like a little time capsule of the 70s. It's a vibe that's hard to forget, even if the cleaning part wasn't so fun. And while your shag carpet set the mood indoors, the way you dressed could make an entrance all on its own. If you didn't own a pair, were you even really living in the 70s? Bell-bottoms were the iconic look. Tied at the waist and thighs, they flared out from the knee down.
Wouldn't it be great to wear jeans so comfortable they work with your body shape to help make the most of your curves?
Swishing with every step. Whether you were dancing to a disco or walking to school, bell-bottoms made sure you looked cool. The 70s energy radiated with every movement, and if you weren't wearing them, you probably weren't getting invited to the cool parties. Paired with a funky t-shirt or a glittery top, bell-bottoms turned heads and made you stand out, cementing their status as a true fashion staple of the decade. Hula hoops might still be around today.
Whatever you're doing, you could be hula hooping's got a peppermint scent.
But in the 70s, they were everywhere. As a kid back then, you didn't just play with a hula hoop, you became one. Every kid had one, and we'd spend hours trying to outdo each other with tricks and spins.
My hands, I'm going to hold the hoop well, parallel to the ground. I'm going to place one foot forward, and then I'm going to start by turning the hoop to my left side.
It wasn't just a toy, it was the thing to do, an art form. You'd see kids on sidewalks and in parks moving their hips like pros, as if in a competition. And let's not forget that hula hooping was a major social event. If you had the best moves, you were the coolest kid around. Imagine cruising down the road, music blasting, and hanging from the rearview mirror those funky fuzzy dice.
Do people question your manhood because of the size of your fuzzy dice? Well, not anymore.
They were everywhere in the 70s, and they weren't just for decoration. Those dice were a statement piece, giving any car, whether old or new, a bit of flair. They were the ultimate accessory, adding personality and fun to your ride. You could even shake them like part of a dice game. They weren't just hanging there. They gave your car that quirky touch, making it feel unique. It was like the car was silently declaring its own coolness, fully aware of its own appeal. Back in the day, before everyone was obsessed with avocado toast and Instagram-worthy bowls, we had instant oatmeal. It wasn't fancy, but it sure did the trick.
The same boiling water that makes instant coffee makes Quaker instant oatmeal.
You'd grab a pack, rip it open, pour in some hot water, give it a little stir, and boom, you had breakfast ready in like no time at all. It was the breakfast of champions when you were running late for school or trying to survive the early morning hustle. No need to wait around for the stove, just a few simple steps, and you were good to go. The best part? You could even get it in fun flavors like maple brown sugar or apple cinnamon, so every morning felt a little different. If you were around in the 70s, you definitely remember the Rubik's Cube. It was that colorful, twisty puzzle that everyone had, but no one actually knew how to solve it. It sat on your coffee table, taunting you every time you looked at it. You'd twist and turn it, trying to match the colors, but it always felt like one wrong move from chaos. People spent hours fiddling with it, convinced this would be the time they'd crack the code. But, spoiler alert, it often stayed unsolved. It made you feel like a genius when you almost got it, but question your choices when you had to start over. Back in the 70s, if your shoes were starting to look a little worn out, there was a whole kit to help bring them back to life. It was like giving your shoes a mini spa day. You'd take out the polish, grab a soft cloth, and buff away until your shoes were gleaming like they just came off the shelf. It wasn't just about making them look good, it was about feeling good too. A shiny pair of shoes gave you that fresh, ready-to-conquer the world vibe. People would do this regularly, keeping their shoes looking sharp for everything from family outings to disco nights. And there was something really satisfying about the moment when you'd step back and admire your work, seeing those shoes gleaming in the light. It was a small task, but it made a big difference in making you feel great. Popcorn in the 70s was a whole vibe. You'd grab that shiny foil pan, toss it on the stove, and start shaking it like you were a magician about to perform a trick. As the kernels heated up, you'd hear that satisfying pop, pop, pop sound.
Here comes the Jiffy Pop. Fresh, hot, and delicious every time because you make it yourself. Gather around the Jiffy Pop, the family fun treat.
And watch as the pan slowly puffed up, filling with fresh, hot popcorn. It was like watching a mini explosion happen right in front of your eyes. And every time, it felt like magic. You never really knew when it was going to stop, so you just keep shaking and shaking, hoping to catch every last kernel before it was done. And the best part? The smell. That buttery aroma would fill the whole house, and you knew it was snack time. Remember the Easy Bake Oven where you could bake mini treats with a light bulb? Well, imagine that, but instead of cookies, you're making bugs. Yep, you heard me right. It was called Creepy Crawlers, and it was like crafting your own very little creepy insect army. You'd pour this gooey, rubbery liquid into tiny molds that looked like bugs, things like spiders, worms, and beetles. Then you'd pop them into the special oven and wait for them to cook. And when they were done, bam, you had your very own squishy, creepy-crawly little creations to play with. It was like a mini science experiment, mixed with a dollop of childhood weirdness. Honestly, it was probably one of the most fun things to do as a kid, and it definitely made for some interesting playtime. Before Amazon made online shopping super easy, there was a whole vibe called Tupperware parties. Picture this, a group of friends getting together, not for cocktails, but to check out the latest in plastic storage containers.
You can see and buy Tupperware at a Tupperware party. A Tupperware dealer will tell you how you may qualify to earn this handsome Hamilton Beach adjustable electric knife and cutting board if you have a party in your home by December 30th.
Yes, you heard that right. People used to gather to talk about and admire Tupperware. You'd sip on some punch, chat with neighbors, and flip through colorful catalogs featuring containers to keep leftovers fresh or organize your kitchen. It wasn't just about buying plastic, though. It was about the experience. You'd have a little fun, show off your new containers, and maybe, just maybe, end up with a few extra ones for storing snacks or organizing your fridge. Honestly, it was like a social event, except instead of gossiping about the latest drama, you were all about that fresh seal on your food. Kinda hilarious, right? Mood rings were the ultimate feeling indicator from back in the day. These rings were more than just jewelry. They were your personal mood tracker. The idea was simple but cool. The color of the ring would change depending on your emotions. Feeling happy? The ring might turn bright blue or green. Getting a little stressed? It could turn black or dark. At least that's what they claimed it would do. It was all about making a statement without saying a word. Imagine walking into your class, your mood ring turning a deep shade of red, and everyone knowing you were not in the best mood that day. Talk about an accessory with a secret power. While the science behind it was a bit shaky, mood rings were still a total hit. Before online shopping and instant access to everything on your phone, there was the Sears catalog. This thick, glossy book was delivered to homes across America and became the go-to shopping guide for nearly everything.
That was before they had Amazon, where you buy it. It was like Amazon, except you didn't do it on the internet.
From clothing and toys to home appliances and even furniture, the Sears catalog was the ultimate wish book for kids and adults alike. Families would spend hours flipping through its pages, circling their favorite items, and imagining what it would be like to have them. In the 1970s, it was a Christmas tradition for kids to pick out toys from its colorful pages. However, with the rise of online shopping, the Sears catalog faded into history, and Sears itself began closing stores, turning this once iconic catalog into a symbol of nostalgic Americana. Imagine this, the first ever video game.
Each player controls a goalie plus a forward on the other side. Oops, a goal. And
before Fortnite, Mario, and today's epic games, there was Pong. It was like tennis, but instead of a ball, a little dot bounced across the screen. The paddles, simple blocks moved up and down, trying to bounce the dot back and forth. Sounds basic, right? But here's the wild part. It completely changed the world of entertainment. People had never seen anything like it. Pong laid the foundation for everything from arcade games to virtual worlds. Even though it looks ancient today, it was the start of an entirely new way to have fun. The grandparent of all modern video games.
When we feel turned on to each other,
we turn on our lava lamp.
Lava lamps were the must-have accessory for any 70s room. It was like art and a science experiment combined. Picture this. You'd flip the switch, and the funky wax inside would start to heat up, bubble, and move in slow, mesmerizing patterns. It was like watching magic in a glass bottle. They gave off this mellow, chill vibe, almost like they were setting the mood for the room. No one could resist staring at them for way too long, hypnotized by the swirls and the gentle glow. It was like the lamp was alive, but in the coolest, most laid-back way possible. Plus, they were the perfect conversation starter. If you had a lava lamp, you were automatically cool.